industry in China and the lessons for India. I request all of you to please keep your cell phones on silent during the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you for the very thorough introduction. I won't take long because we are slightly running late. I think it's 2:15 now, so I'll try to aim to finish it by 3:40. Is that okay? Yeah. So we have around 1.5 hours of good discussions. Allow me to thank the MIT School of Governance for and the Shivnadar University's Himalayan Studies Center and the Institute of Chinese Studies, New Delhi, for having me here. It's a great honor for me to be present here in this amidst this August gathering. Thank you to Dr. Parimal Maya Sudhakar for asking me to be chairing one of the sessions. I am Dr. Rupakjyoti Borah. I am the Associate Dean for External Relations at the School of Liberal Arts, MIT World Peace University. I specialize on another aspect of India's foreign policy, which is India-Japan relations, and I've spent time in Japan as well. And I'm very, it's a big day for me because I happen to meet my professor from JNU, Professor Alka Acharya. After maybe around 14 years, it's a great honor for me to be at the same forum as Professor Acharya. We used to look forward to her speeches, her lectures, and her all-round help in the university while I was at JNU at the School of International Studies. So this session is about technology in China's new development concept. I am not exactly a technology guy, but I'm here to learn. And that is why I'm here. And we have a host of very learned speakers. Professor Aravind Yelery, Professor Y. Nithiyanandam, and Mr. Divya Pranav. I'm looking forward to very interesting presentations from all of them. We have around 12 minutes for each presentation and 2 minutes for Q&A. And if there is any time left at the end, we'll have another round of Q&A. So without any further ado, I hand over the mic to the first speaker, Dr. Aravind Yelery from Jawaharlal University, New Delhi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to me being an organizer for coming back again. We can finish at 3:30. I'm taking the full advantage of being in convener over here. After yesterday's inaugural session, I did mention yesterday, but I had to keep it absolutely tight-lipped, saying that when we meet tomorrow, that is today, we're going to discuss a lot of issues, debate a lot. There was a point made yesterday that why didn't we use AI to predict the wars, right? There was a mention that yesterday. We did expect Doklam to happen or Galvan to happen after 1962, immediately on the second day. We didn't need any AI for that. So we were absolutely vigilant about China's activities traditionally on the borders, beyond borders. The new challenges which we face today, when the second largest economy is not only the second largest economy as such, but is also the biggest problem and challenge for China, India's rise, India's technological rise, economic rise, India's proposition for alternative world. You take anything and China comes up with its own game plan, and we have been outsmarted because I think we are not capable of understanding, or maybe we were not capable of understanding. So entire idea of having this India Forum on China was actually to accentuate bringing professionals on a forum where we discuss about all these challenges and help our policymakers and then build up consensus, not consensus essentially, but build a direction and momentum to take it forward. And today I'm going to speak about the green technology innovation and China's new development concept. Yesterday it was mentioned that science is only important when it is applied, right? When it turns into technology. But technology doesn't have its own metabolism. a technology moves to in certain direction because that metabolism has been provided by a narrative. So something which is beyond narrative, beyond technology is narrative. When we look at China, this narrative is very important and is at the core of understanding China's technological revolution, development, direction, and you name it. This narrative, understanding this narrative is very essential for everyone who is studying China. We are teachers, but we are essentially also the researchers. Most of us, the panelists who are speaking today, we are first researchers of China, and that is why we are just putting out our key findings. More than narrative, what is important is also the timings, or what you call opportunity. You have science and technology, but you don't develop it. You have science, but you do not develop into technology. And if you do not have a narrative, and if you have a narrative, but you do not have an opportunity, you are not successful. So what is most important that you have to develop your narrative, which will make your technology deployable in that certain period of time. So this is an absolutely very fine-tuned game. And this is a game we have to play in a very in a focused way, and as a result of it, there are no margin for errors. Okay, putting that in perspective, what is most important to understand is that green technology, is it really green, or it is a green technology which is red, right? So now, if you understand and revisit my title, China's narrative of developing technology from last 15 years has a lot of strategical implications and contours. Why so? The two things essentially happened in last 15 years. You may say that, okay, there are a lot of political things that might happen, strategic things that might happen, but essentially two things. One, a country which was heavily industrialized, dependent on export-led growth, suddenly switches to green technology. Here the word suddenly is very important because if you look, or if you take nation state in a perspective of 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 timeline, years of timeline, switching to a new technology or a new circular technology in a couple of years is sudden moment, right? That has a legacy impact because it was the party which wanted to bring in technology to the center. And second thing, also important is when globally, when the cost of the green technologies were completed, China had absolutely a positive atmosphere and ecosystem to work upon it. So now you have a narrative and you have a technology at your disposal, and then you come up with a fantastic plan. When I talk about green technology here, I'm essentially talking about EVs, electric vehicles, because the Chinese car brands made up about half of the global EV green vehicles. The second component is lithium-ion batteries. China holds over 70% of global manufacturing, and the third one is about the solar photovoltaics, the PVs. So when I say that, what I essentially mean is that China slowly transitioned from a crisis management to a management of its global relation, keeping green development at the center. And what is most important over here is China has slowly transitioned into a strategic industrial policy. And this, when I say strategic industrial policy, that means that they prepared for a long-term policy gains, long-term policy aims. Few of the terms you might have heard about or you might have read in the literature. For example, circular economy. For example, ecological civilization. For example, beautiful China, Meili Zhongguo. All these narratives were created to basket the technological shift globally it was happening, and China could also align with that, but also benefit domestically. So that alignment happened as a part of China's larger industrial strategies, which is absolutely, shocking to see. America and most of the European countries, which were actually doing this upstream job and then developing technology and downstreaming it, distributing it, did not even anticipate that China would climb up so fast and so at such a pace. Okay. Now, when we talk about strategic policies, what was at the core of strategic policies was instituting broad policies. Remember one thing, it did not happen overnight. When China started talking about green technological development, it essentially said that it has to meet two ends. One, it has to develop the domestic industries, innovate, as well as traditional and often dirty but critical upstream industries need to be rectified. China did not really move away from the manufacturing, the traditional manufacturing. What China did smartly, while it was developing the green technologies, it moved the older technologies, older industrial bases to the inside, to the westwards. Then, second thing, China made sure that it turns into accelerator state. This is, most of us who know the industry well, whether that's Manjunath or Divay, and maybe Venkat also, the job of accelerator is to enable the capacities of the existing enterprises. So what China was trying to do is actually was not doing inventions, but was actually capitalizing on the innovation which it had and turn it into make China in an accelerator state. It was the bestest way to make the existing system without making any major disruptions, create it as a motherboard and then plug it in and then run it. Most of us are rather infatuated with the idea that how China became so fast a country which could come at the center stage when it comes to the green technologies. This was the module which was developed by the Chinese. There is a argument which says that China knows how to make from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, right? That's just an additions. But the problem with China is it doesn't know how to make from 0 to 1. This is a major problem. And as a result of it, if you see the trajectory, if you remember my first words, a narrative trajectory, China built from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and 3 to 4. And China is doing it brilliantly. Let's not shy away from that, right? But we cannot definitely have a common currency. Right. What comes to the next is the overcapacity. Remember one thing, when China started developing the green technologies and then the green development, it had to cater the major problem what China has been proud about, like huge warehouses, dry ports. And then China was stuck with these overcapacity problems. So essentially, when China was developing these narratives, trying to institutionalize broad policies, it had to deal with the consolidation of the overcapacities, which came as very natural thing for it. Then, once China started trimming down the overcapacities, what came next was the supply chain security. I'm a researcher, but I'm speaking like a management student here, but that's the interdisciplinary nature of studies, what China forces us to do. Interestingly, there are three aspects of supply chain security. China's industrial approach has been, in past 15 years, is to control the domestic input materials. They want to control the production of the critical minerals and the processing of it. And secondly, make it attractive for the investors, for the domestic economy, so it builds upon that. The second phase of that, based on that, dominate the supplies internationally. So once you have controlled the productions, you can control the supplies. Once you control the supplies, you control the market and the metabolism of the market. Simple three-line formula. And what happens, the best case I can give you? Today, yeah, I'll try to wind it up. So today, I give an example. China controls 70% of lithium cell manufacturing, the first line, okay, controlling the production. And China also is one country which controls 13% of global supplies of the lithium cell. China dominates it, right? And let's take the polysilicon. Manjuna spoke about the semiconductor industry, right? It's a key industry as well in solar panels. China controls 80% of the production. So you have the entire system, China developed it, making everyone look green, but it was not green, it was red rather, right? 1.5 minutes. I'm concluding that. Now, interestingly, while these things were being restructured domestically, when China's leadership was trying to do it, was trying to realign the domestic forces, domestic production lines, trimming down, what it was essentially doing that, it was trying to build bilateral alliances. China doesn't believe in multilateral alliances. Those are all bilateral alliances. Belt and Road you have. I will not go and speak about it. I think you have done more studies on BRI than myself. Okay. So the China worked upon building bilateral alliances, and this bilateral alliances is only one to keep the other countries outside the competition. That's very important. Today, what worries China the most is it has approximately 600 billion of technological exports to EU, and today China is already thinking about what happens if we are displaced out of EU. So we have to talk about it, right? Last 1 minute. Now, what China is doing now, essentially, 3 things: promote, protect, and partner up. So China is silently promoting its security-oriented strategy in great development, protecting its local industries, and also partnering with the international big players. I have examples to give from that. 1 minute or shorter than that, let me come up to quick things. By 2023, China held approximately about 180 billion Chinese yuan of green bonds, okay? And it issued those green bonds. When it is green standard is concerned, I often speak about those who are working on technology. China is not creating the most smartest technologies, but China is creating alternative technologies, the standards of technologies, the lingo of technologies. China is looking beyond that. Huawei is already building 7G. It is already selling this 6G to some of the markets. If you listen to Ran Zhengfei, the way he talks, he said we are already into 7. We are already testing the 7G. Green technologies. Chinese patent filing in green energy research has increased from 42,000 in just the period of 10 years, 2005 to 2015. So I'll not go beyond that. I just want to conclude saying few things. One, there was a famous statement which was made by Jessica Chen Weiss at the Cornell University when she said, we cannot dominate China by putting out China, right? So don't try to out China China. So essential idea for us is, I think yesterday we were talking about, there are few areas we have to be carefully looking at China, what China faltered in, where China made mistakes. We need to learn from there. One. Second thing, if you look at, because international politics is not something like a big science. It's as simple as 1 + 1 = 2, and sometimes 1 + 1 is 11, but it is predictable. What I mean here is that the way China is trying to manage its economic relationship with the US by de-risking but not decoupling, India can also do the same thing, not overnight of decoupling but de-risking. Essentially, it is very important to understand that China is going to remain a major challenge, even if it is a green development or green technologies are concerned. And we have to improve our abilities to deal China challenges in different fashions. So it is not green developed essentially, it is a red development. It has a lot of strategies behind it. We have to understand as a researcher, student, professional, and in any other fashion. Thank you so much.
Yes, yeah, please introduce yourself and just one question. Other questions, we'll take it at the end. Please introduce yourself. I know you, others don't.
Hello. Yeah. Good afternoon, sir. Myself, Soham Deshmukh. I'm from MIT SOJ itself. So my question was regarding the solar production control that you mentioned that China currently holds. So as all of us know that recently India has pioneered the Solar Alliance under G20. So do you think that ultimately the production that is needed for this Solar Alliance will indirectly go to China, and at the end we will indirectly end up boosting China's economy there rather than uh, strategizing and strengthening our own alliance?
Uh, well, China has refused to join the Solar Alliance. We did propose that, but China is not on board. The two, I mean, explicit answers for this. One thing is China doesn't really want India to play an important role as far as the outsourcing of the solar material, as you know, there's the other parts concerned with the solar panels. The second thing is if we can build on this, I'm a bit skeptical about it, being very critical on that. In last 6 to 7 years, we lost a lot of industries to Southeast Asian countries, to Vietnam, to Malaysia, and few industries also to Central Asian economies. Do we have capacities? Because if you see today, the EV and the solar panels, we are highly dependent on China. And if not China, then the Chinese assembled products which have been exported to India, and we are outsourcing it. Even the central government is also outsourcing the solar panels. So the route to build a solar panel is certainly lot more longer. It is not that easy to do it, to operationalize it. And that, I think, is my shortest answer to that. Yeah.
So now we have the next presentation by Professor Y. Nithiyanandam, Head Geospatial Program, Takshashila Institution, Bengaluru.
Can I get this pointer?
The same, you have 12 minutes and maybe around 2 minutes for a quick Q&A.
Yeah, I'll try to finish it much earlier than that.
Okay, thank you.
Is that fonts changed? Of course, this is not my font. Can you open it, the PPTX which I've given, or the PDF? Even PDF works. Just download it, it's fine. Can you download it? So let him download. Meanwhile, I'll try to introduce a subject which I'm going to talk about, is geospatial technology. Yesterday we had a brief discussion about where were the analysts, right? So this is the technology, and the people behind this are the analysts who can look at what's happening beyond borders and who can intimate people on ground, right? So thank you. So this is my font. Okay. So before I get into this, I just want to know how many of you are aware of a subject called geospatial technology. You can raise your hand. Feel free to raise a hand. Great. Very few, right? Oh yeah, I will not, ma'am. So then how many of you use mobile phones? It's a very stupid question, right? But you're living with the technology. Your mobile phone will not work, and then don't come to me and say like I use an old phone, or int guys use a phone where there is no internet, right? But then if you use smartphone, so you are using the technology and you're part of a technology and you're living with it. Because if you try to say no to the location information in it, your smartphone will not function with almost none of the apps, right? Despite whether it is required or not, your smartphones will not function. So I'm going to talk about a technology. I felt it is a bit necessary to take a couple of minutes, probably 2 minutes, to introduce the subject. So data is a definition known to many, right? It can be of any form: facts, statistics, even images, any form of it. The moment it comes with something called the spatial information, the latitude and longitudinal information, or any form of reference to the earth, the data turns into a geospatial data or a spatial data. Remember this word because we'll come across again and again this. So we are talking about a data like this, right? What is this? Another stupid question. Perfect. So what do you see in that? Like I know the place is your campus, but what you're actually looking at here is a combination of two things. One is the satellite image, which is a raw one, right? That comes from the satellite. On top of it, you have markings, right? The markings come from a technology called GIS. That's nothing but an advanced level of cartography. The cartography is an ancient technique where you draw by hand, but then the maps you're seeing there and maps you can see here, and the markings on top of it comes from something called geospatial technology. So it also, what does it mean when a photograph is taken? Photograph has some information based on its reflection, and different forms of sensors gives different information. But the same photographs gets a latitudinal and longitudinal information to each of its pixel, right? Then it becomes a spatial data. Then you can overlay with anything. Just look at these two images, compare these images. It is rotated and it actually sits with a reality when it is a spatial data. So the beauty of it, any data that you bring it will sit together if it is a spatial data. So the technology to deal with that is a geospatial technology where you can view the data, you can manipulate it, you can visualize it, you can present it in the form that you want it, and you can corroborate it and maintain it as a database forever. So that is the power of the technology. Largely has three components: the remote sensing, the one satellites, and any other form of sensors which is in distinct from surface gives it. Second one is the navigation system, because this is something which has largely benefited China. And the third one is the geographic information system, the software in which you bring all the data and play around. Okay. Now, I just want to skip through the slides because this is a list of applications that you can see. There are several applications starting from your land use planning, decision making. I put decision making up front because the decision making today is very important based on the facts on the ground and with the help of scientific inputs. So that is possible from the different forms of geospatial data. So let's jump directly into the Chinese geospatial data infrastructure, because all this, couple of years I've been looking at the Indian geospatial policy and infrastructure, but this is an opportunity I got to look at the Chinese infrastructure. So it's an industry rapidly growing in China, because when you look at the developments, it is triggered by the geospatial development as well, and you can see the kind of valued it is, like 113 billion, right? As per the document of Chinese Association for Geospatial Industry. So I've quoted it, quoted the sources here. Can anybody guess how roughly Indian geospatial economy is? We are sharing same culture, almost, a lot of developments happen intact, right? Anybody want to guess? Because I'm sure my chair is very strict, so you need to be quick. Oh? Yeah, tell me what? I would say 5 to 10 billion. Oh, you're right. It is 5.5 billion. So approximately 45,000 crores of Indian money. It's come roughly around 5.8 billion USD. Now, this is the difference in the infrastructure. I will take, I just want to make a couple of, notes here. Look at the positioning system, 580 billion plus positioning services and hundreds of navigation apps. This is feasible when people have their own navigation system, like Baidu is their own navigation unit. So, but then India is, I am comparing India because I just want to give a context, right? So we are still building our own navigation unit. Probably after the fully operational navigation unit, perhaps our economy will also grow. Now, what has actually led to that development, that number, right? So there are a few steps people have taken over the years. I have brought down the years here. So geospatial data standard. It's a first step, I would say, surveying and navigation has been part of any government, for let's say 1960s and thereafter also. But then the developments happened soon after 2000. And then if you look at here, the data standards were first introduced. What is data standard? Anybody can generate GIS data, right? So I can go out using a GPS and can generate it. But what is standard? The way you collect it, there are certain parameters, the way you assume the shape of Earth, and the kind of metadata. Metadata is additional data you will give a name to it, you will say like who has produced it, what is the source of it, who funded the project, all those things comes in a metadata. So standardization was the first step. Once they brought out the standardization, the next step was, including it in their development plans. Once you have different development plans, like people have environmental plans, people have, in urban context, there are many plans comes into picture. So integrate it in your planning aspects. The third one is a sharing. Once you established full-fledged infrastructure of geospatial, then people talks about sharing it. Like you need to be cautious in sharing it. You can't find much of data which is generated from China outside the China, right? So in that way, it is so much protected, and geospatial information is ideally like that. Any country generally protects it, but China protects it at a larger extent. So once they have done this, things, they also put out in different 5 years plans in a different shape. Noticeably, if you look at 13th 5-year plan, it was largely focused on AI, IoT, and big data. Of course, there is a huge component of deploying, geospatial in governance. Just one example in Indian context, I'll tell how it is useful in governance. There are different government-funded projects, right? But before the GIS-based visualization of the projects in Indian context, one can actually change the name, and Gandhi ji ko DHI bhi kar sakte, DI bhi kar sakte, and then you can take money from more than one project. That is ideally feasible. Technically, you can't figure out in many of the platforms. But then the moment you have GIS as a platform, if you put out on that and see like what are the projects carried out in different period of time, you will obviously see a same place gets two fundings, right? So this is something where I've given a basic example, but then there are many ways it helps people to regularize the things, the fundings, the different works on the ground. And then the focus was shifted to climate change, and then now it is looking at more and more advancement in the field, because my fellow speakers also mentioned it's not 0 to 1, right? So they jumped into 1, 1 to 2, and 2 to 3, but then now they are also focusing on getting into 1 by looking at and questioning the fundamentals of the way the technology works and the algorithm works. Now, in modern day context, this organization has a huge role in the development of it, that is National Administration of Surveying, Mapping and Geoinformatics. It has evolved over a period of time. Earlier it was called in a different name. Now it is being called in this. They are largely controlling, supervising, implementing policies and looking at major projects. So when I say major projects, while these are the applications, I'll just get into some of the major projects, including Belt and Road Initiative, right? So we all know, we can see Belt and Road Initiative maps online, right? Most of the time you see something called a raster map, where somebody has, grossly drawn something, and then you can't figure out how it is, what is the length of a road in a particular area. That is a job of us. So ideally it comes to the vector file where you can make those measurements. Now, is geospatial used just for making maps in that? I would say no, because if you look at the optimization of route, where anyway you are doing it with Google Maps to find place A to place B, right? That is called route optimization. Route optimization, assessing environmental impacts. There are set of LIDARs. LIDARs are an instrument which looks up space and provide pollutant levels at different height. So those LIDARs are also deployed. Indeed, I would say that's one of the best way if we are really wanted to mitigate the least pollution other than the political aspect, where we need to columnize the pollutant levels and characterize it, and they have established a beautiful network of LIDARs on their way. And then managing construction and then monitoring aspects also being carried out with the help of geospatial infrastructure. Not just that. They also use this for high-speed railway monitoring, especially if you look at the second point, the SAR, Luton 1, that is something that looks at a subsidize of land on a particular area. What is subsidized? Means like when the land area goes down due to some activities, either it can be a natural activity or a man-made activity, where the land goes to some, few centimeters. So imagine there are technologies, the geospatial component helps you find a subsidence level of centimeters, right? If it goes below certain centimeters. In this case, specifically in this area, it has gone, Jinan, it has gone because of rapid urbanization and over pumping of groundwater, right? So it's not just that, they use for highways, they use for ports, especially in South China Sea also, it's being largely used to track their movements and so on. So geospatial, it cannot be described without military aspect. So around 80% of the data in any military and any country which has a significant military component, 80% of the data is having geospatial tag to it. But we need to think how much geospatial intelligence or geospatial component exists in their practice, reconnaissance, and other aspects. But then they use extensively, especially in Tibet Autonomous Region. It has been extensively, the maps are quite detailed, and it extensively describes the land features and resources in that area. That is for a reason like this. Can anyone like to guess, because I believe we still have a couple of minutes, anyone like to guess when was the occasion? Of course, I've written it there. This is 10-line map, right? So it was released on an occasion, right, when a geospatial, the survey and mapping publicity day was celebrated. So we are the geospatial guys who are the reason for this map. So it was released at a particular instance when the official from a ministry was saying this map is being released in order to you to identify your own resources and to aware of your territory and utilization of the geospatial resource in a better way, which means they are still saying the geospatial technology can be utilized in a better way than what is being used at present, right? Yeah, that's perfect. So while all this is possible because of very good, universities which functions in China and special administrative regions. So I have just listed out top 10 based on the source I've given here. The 10 universities, you can see the infrastructure is so good where you can take out a research from land to moon. Indeed, I was fortunate to be part of 2 universities here. One is my alma mater and one is my collaborator in my project. The University of Hong Kong is where I collaborated extensively for urban heat island research, which is one of the largest one, and Hong Kong PolyU is my alma mater. So even in our department, we used to have research, and still the department is contributing for lunar mission of China. So it's not just one university or one place, the research is being spread, and the extensive infrastructure helps them to climb to utilization of this. At last, I would like to say a few things. While these are the merits, the challenges are the data sets are in a particular language, right? You can work within the system, but you can't utilize the data to put it outside the system. But if the data is available, after all, it has a geospatial information, the latitude and longitude, it will sit with any country's data. But the metadata is something in different languages, right? That is very difficult for us to decode it. Second is, internally it works, but externally it won't work. There are developments happened in the software infrastructure. For example, if you see softwares like this, indigenous software JX4, there are photogrammetry, remote sensing software. Photogrammetry means looking at Earth from different sides and creating a 3-dimension aspect of Earth, and remote sensing softwares. Why I've exclusively mentioned the softwares here? Some has 80% marketplace in China. Some has, the other set, remote sensing has 20% marketplace. And the last component are GIS ones that has again 50% marketplace in China. These are Chinese softwares. If you ask me, are there indigenous, truly of different algorithm, I would say any GIS software, geospatial software across the globe has a similar component of tools, similar component of algorithm, but with different names. But what best is this? They can still capture a bit of marketplace within their country, where if you see contrastingly where we are, we do not have even one software in this country which indigenously made for us. We still use softwares which are based on US, right? So, but then it has not just happened like this. There are possibilities where the softwares are even left out in open domain. I used to interact with my Chinese friend during PhD time. When we worry about license and software, he simply said, don't worry, we have. So the we have is like when you go to this particular websites, we get plenty of software. Of course, it is cracked. But despite it being cracked, the availability of the software was something very important. So either we need to get into, I'm not suggesting that we should use crack softwares. I'm suggesting we should have more indigenous softwares other than open source software. We need to have commercial software. Indian players should come on it, and then only we can use the data, better appreciate the data. In fact, being outside the country, they still wanted to use Indian satellites and Indian data sets, trying to work with Indian universities to get an idea of how Indian remote sensing satellite and its metadata works. So, of course, in a document it is mentioned in 2018 by an Indian company saying that they are one of the world leaders in geospatial technology. They were ranked 6th in 2018. I'm sure, they have outpassed all the people, and then probably they will be in top 3 position now. But then there are not much of information on where they are, because these kind of studies are not being carried out. They have extensively utilized the geospatial tool for solving real world problems. That is something where we are trying to catch up. One last example where we are in terms of the policies which they have brought out, right? In 2005, I think in the same period we do have, if you look at our policy efforts, what we have taken, we are almost on the same line. But the question is of how we are implementing. I'm not sure how they have implemented. I'm talking only based on the document which are published, right? But then we had something called the geospatial policy, which is going to have a 2nd year anniversary in 5 days, where they don't have the policy, but whereas they implemented and deployed in different 5-year plans at different stages and enforced the things. That's a difference between the two countries which are marching towards the geospatial advancement. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nithiyanandam, for an excellent presentation and also for sticking to time. So I think we have time for just one question. One question now, the others later at the end. Yes, please introduce yourself.
Chinese citizens will be able to mitigate the risk of high surveillance when these kind of technologies are developing.
So do you think we are not facing the same thing?
We are, but we are talking Chinese perspective.
If anybody wants to utilize it, I'm not contesting your question, I'm just trying to bring more clarity to it. Anybody who wants to use more and more of this technology will feel like our information is being shared, right? It's like sharing it with other companies and sharing it with Indian companies or Chinese companies, for say in that case, it's a different thing. But I mean, almost anybody who is looking for position-based development, if your app has a position information and an app collects some other information of yours and you are narrowed down, like, whenever you get any of the satellite data for say, your information is known to people to whom you are, from whom you are getting the data. So in that case, it is unavoidable, but we need to look at the benefits out of it. In that cases, the apps and things are beneficial. More than one competitor exists in the market, right? In India, there is a question of, somebody asked me a question like, can we make a new navigation app for India? Let's say we have, I would like to mention here, we have Google Maps, right, which is known to us. There is a Desi map, that is Map My India's own unit for navigation. And we have Air Maps, which is on and off in different platform, and we don't have any. So is it possible for a third player or fourth player to create such navigation maps for you? The chances are very low, because the information is confined with only set of people, right? So if Ola wants to try, Ola has a collection of certain information that they can bring it, but it cannot meet the accuracy standard of Google, where they're collecting data from all our mobile phones. By the way, when you see anything on Google Maps, red, green and blue, it is nothing sensed from space. It is always given from our mobile phones, right? This is known to larger people when somebody experimented by collecting more and more phones together and creating a traffic simulation. Otherwise, it was not known. But people in this domain knows it is just we provide information to us, right?
Thank you. So now we move on to the next speaker, and we'll take more questions at the end. Our third and the last speaker for this session is Mr. Pranav. He is the head of strategy and partnerships for Yulu, and he was earlier with the Adani Group and Invest India. So you have the same time, around 12 minutes, 12 minutes for the presentation,
I have a
3 minutes.
stopwatch. I'll stick to
Okay,
it.
thank you.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone. The benefit of speaking last in a conference is that most of your statistics and data is already stolen by your co-panelists. So Aravind literally spoke what I was about to say. So now I need to think about something unique which I can share with you. And perhaps I'll share something about my own experience. So I worked with government for almost 6 years. I was part of the Make in India program, and part of my work was to help Chinese companies to set up factories in India. And Pune used to be like my most frequently visited place. So I used to go to Chakan, Talegaon, Ranjangaon, all those industrial areas, finding industrial land, setting up factories, etc. And then I moved to a large corporate house because in 2020, when this Galwan crisis happened, so government of India came out with the change in the FDI policy, and the Chinese investment was no longer appreciated and invited. So I felt that, okay, let's move to the corporate world, let's get rid of China for the time being. But I can tell you, moment I switched to a large corporate house, China was even more difficult to get rid of, because we were doing large scale solar projects, we were doing a lot of infrastructure projects, we wanted those heavy duty equipments, lifts for running the ports, etc. From where do we get it? The best place and the cheapest, good quality, go to China, source it from there. Then I moved to electric vehicle industry, a startup based out of Bangalore. So in my current setup, my company is a large electric two-wheeler fleet operator. And we have close to 50,000 scooters in our fleet, which we run in multiple cities across India. Pune is an exception. We are still not operating here, but we manufacture our scooters here. So Bajaj Auto is our manufacturing partner. And in their Akurdi plant, not far from here, all our scooters are manufactured and assembled. The question is that, can I still resist China in my sourcing? The answer is no. Still I got to depend on China. But does that mean that if I come to the next edition of this conference, will I still repeat the same words? The answer is no. Because we have a Make in India plan in order, and we are continuously working on how we can localize production. The reason is not that I want to get rid of China. At least industry doesn't think like this. So there is a huge disconnect. In fact, I have a lot of contrary opinions to what have been spoken in the conference today. Because industry thinks differently. We don't think about that, Commerce Ministry is saying that you do Make in India, Prime Minister office is saying something to you, so you change your plans. My engineer, my procurement team are driven by unit economics. So we look at the fact that if a scooter has to be manufactured and sold in the market, are there enough buyers in the market who are going to take it? Will I be able to do it at the price points which will resonate with my customers? And in the process, will I be able to make some profit or some margin in my P&L statement or not? These are the factors which drive me. My engineer who is making the procurement decisions is not impacted by the policy. What is a prevailing policy? We do look into consideration the restrictions that exist. So for example, today I cannot import a pneumatic tire. Pneumatic tire is the basic tire that you put in our scooters. It's a pneumatic tire, air pressure. I cannot import that in India. There is a restriction. So that's one restriction. So my procurement team thinks about, okay, from where we can get the pneumatic tire. There are many manufacturers in India from where we can source it. If they are not manufacturing the exact grade that we need, we can work with them and develop that particular tire. Likewise, I continuously look at other factors as well. So when I import something from China, there is lead time, there are supply chain shocks which I can get during adverse times like COVID. The entire auto industry came to a standstill. Why did that happen? I'll come to that. Additionally, I also look at that if there is any fault which I come across in my scooter. Nowadays, electric scooters have too many faults, right? So there are too many news articles out there that people are stranded outside the showroom, repair and maintenance is not happening. The reason might be that some of those parts have to be sourced from China, and it takes time to get them here. Sometimes China is shipping bigger orders through their ports to US and Western Europe. So consignments which have to come towards India, this particular sea route, they will not be given priority, right? So to take care of this, I look at localization. Can I develop a local supplier somewhere close to Pune or Bangalore or somewhere else, wherever the skill set exists, and localize my production in India. And that's what becomes like a Make in India theme, which I go and tell to the government, sir, I've been doing it, Make in India is happening. But the reason is not what Prime Minister spoke on the Red Fort, that do Make in India. It is actually always economic decision, which I take into consideration. Because that what helps me achieve the product market fit. If I don't have the product market fit, policy narratives doesn't help the industry at all. Okay? Point number 2. In the conference, I heard so many things about wars, nuclear warheads, geospatial technology, etc. I also do a war. This war is against the pollution. This war is against everyday commute challenges which students might have to MIT campus, or some of us have to our workplaces, right? This is also equally important. But I'm no longer thinking like what I used to do when I was with Commerce Ministry. Here I have a very, very specific problem at hand, that how do I make the commute cheaper, affordable, and faster, also at the same time create something which resonates with the national policies of Make in India. And this sort of thing actually drives corporate decision making. So Aravind mentioned that large number of solar modules which are currently driving the solar program of India are currently being imported from China. There is absolutely no doubt that China is a leader in solar technology in the world. They have done so much innovation around panels. The efficiency of those panels is at a different level altogether. But that does not mean that Indian companies are not doing it. Like my former employer has a 2 gigawatt solar cell and module manufacturing facility supplying to the Indian projects. In many government-oriented tenders, it is absolutely critical, mandatory to get the localized solar panels if you want to get government orders from India. So government is trying through its own means. Industry is also trying that how we can achieve the unit economics or the cost economics of doing a project in India or not. So that's what is happening in a country. The other thing which I want to bring about is that policy is not everything. And I'm saying this with a lot of confidence because when I was with government, entire day I used to sit in the ministry with joint secretaries. I've been part of drafting committee for national manufacturing policy, national logistic policy also. And somewhere the narrative was that, China is a leader. We are far behind China and all. And I sort of thought that, okay, that perhaps that's the case, that China is better than India. No doubt about this, that they are far ahead than us in many accounts. But that does not mean that India doesn't have the capability. Now I live in Bangalore, and every day I interact with a few startups. Somebody doing drone manufacturing, somebody is doing robotics, electric vehicles is my own industry. I meet with people who make advanced chemistry battery packs, lithium-ion battery packs. And I can tell you that Indian guys are they're not very far behind. They know how these things can be produced, how these things can be designed. The only problem is that we have not figured out how to do it at scale so that we can reduce the cost of production. And that's the example which I think my friend Manjunath also pointed out, that how in that Ujala bulb, that localized chip costed 3 cents in China and it costed 8 cents. The reason is the economies of scale. We haven't been able to achieve that. Or what Chinese factories have been able to do in the last 20, 30 years. Production is not only about technology and robots, robotic arms. It is a lot about process management. On your batch productions, how are you able to cut down unnecessary processes? How you are able to minimize wastages? How optimally you are able to design your entire system? How you are able to cut down unnecessary labor, right? That's what brings the cost down. And this is the true strength which I've understood that Chinese have. They have over the years learned how to do things more efficiently. And the only way in which we can do it is by doing it ourselves. Right? Like for example, Aravind was saying 2 to 4 and 4 to 6 and all. What does that mean? That means that, first of all, as a child, you learn ABCD, right? Then you know how to put these letters together, create words, and then you make sentences. So same is the case which happens in production facility as well. So first of all, you build a very basic assembly, Then you realize, okay, I can make it better. I can reduce the size. I can perhaps get better chips and make it more efficient, get more efficiency out of a particular assembly that I've made. And in due course, you get better with time. Okay? So now is the time for Q&A. How many of you actually own an electric vehicle? Electric two-wheeler or four-wheeler? You own it? Which brand? TVS iQube you have. What percentage of your scooter is actually electronic product? Have you? 80%. Okay, so TVS iQube, in that scooter, roughly 30 to 35% is actually electronic components. And it requires similar skill set which is required to make smartphones. And that is why, if you read newspapers, you would have heard about that Foxconn is now thinking about making an electric car or electric two-wheeler. Because skill sets required are very similar, right? Manjunath shared some examples of PCB. So my electric vehicle has only few components. Number one is the battery pack, which catches fire also sometimes. Number two, because it's imported from China. Number two, I have a motor. Number three, I have a motor controller. Number four, I have a battery management system. And number five, I have a vehicle control unit. Number six is a IoT device. IoT, VCU, vehicle control unit, motor controller, and your IoT device, these are actually electronic products. If you open the smartphone, you will see a green color thing coming out of it. It's very similar to that. It's just that we have put different kind of chips, different kind of semiconductors because we are trying to extract different output out of it, right? Very different from a traditional auto company. So, for example, our partner Bajaj Auto, when we started manufacturing our electric vehicle, they did not even have one single guy who could write a firmware. Well, what is a firmware? Firmware is a very specialized software which sits on that PCB and it makes that PCB run, right? It's a very specific piece of code. And it's called embedded system design. It's a new field which is growing very, very fast. Many of the things around us has this embedded design in it. So for example, your Alexa has it. Perhaps I think your smartphone would also have it in some ways. Other analogies, other examples which I can draw is, like for example, this fan, for example. Very, very similar to what an electric vehicle is. What electric vehicle does? It has a motor which moves and motor is connected to the wheels and wheels start moving. Now you got to get the electric current from somewhere. How do I get the electric current? I put a battery pack somewhere in the scooter or in the car, and battery pack stores energy and moves this motor, and then the wheels move forward. Very similar to what a fan is doing, but fan is connected to the electricity line. Likewise, your mixer grinder at home does the same work. Similarly, I would say washing machine does the same stuff. There is a motor inside it. There is a motor controller. That motor moves and it washes our clothes, right? Because it's a moving vehicle, I got to get the battery pack so that I can store energy in it, right? And sometimes I need a little bit of smart network design for EV chargers or battery swapping. So by the way, my company does a lot of battery swapping. We do 1 crore battery swaps every month. That's the kind of energy we are using at the moment for our operations. And yeah, so this is what electric vehicle is. So if you are a electronics engineer, if you are someone who has worked in chemicals engineering background, you are a fit for electric vehicle company. We don't hire people from traditional auto sector. And this is what exactly happened in China. Because Chinese knew how to make smartphone, they knew how to do this assembly of semiconductors and PCB, etc. So they learned how to make drones. Drones is what? It's a flying electric vehicle, right? It doesn't move on the ground. Likewise, Chinese were very good at a lot of other ancillary industries. So in the corporate sector, we look at adjacent industries, that what are the skill sets which we can bring into our sector and can harness the value of it and utilize it to make something productive. And this is what China is doing very, very well. And the reason is that they were ahead of India on so many industries, like semiconductor industry. They are now manufacturing their own semiconductors also. They were very good at smartphone assembly. And they had all the manufacturers which were already doing it. So those guys pivoted a little bit and they started doing electric cars. And now Aravind told us that 50% of the electric cars sold in the world are actually Chinese electric cars. They are giving such a tough competition to Volkswagen, BMW, Mercedes, that all those players are now forced to get into joint ventures with Chinese companies. Baidu, for example, many of them are signing up with Baidu. For what? For connected devices technology. Many of them are signing up with Huawei. They're signing up with Tencent, Alibaba. Reason being that these companies have developed amazing kind of expertise on artificial intelligence, expertise on connected devices, automated driver assistance system. So you don't need a driver anymore to ride your car. What Tesla is doing. Same thing Chinese companies are also trying to do it. And by the way, if you feel that it's only Chinese who are doing it, that's wrong. There is a company called Ather Energy in India, right? So Ather was the first company in the world that embedded a map in the console. So if you buy an Ather, you can see a map on the dashboard, which can guide you to your college or home or workplace. First two-wheeler company in the world to do it. And why did it happen? Because the market situation in India is very different from China. Chinese companies, they don't look at a two-wheeler as a primary source of commute. In India, if somebody is buying an electric two-wheeler for 1,50,000, then it is everything for them. So companies are trying to see that how they can pack more features in it, how they can make it more attractive for the target audience, trying to find the right product market fit, right? So I see a lot of positive things coming out of Indian electric vehicle industry, and we can pose a very, very stiff competition. Not competition, we can collaborate with China, and we can find our own place in the world and start shipping some of our innovations to other countries like Southeast Asia, Africa, South America, where Chinese companies are dominating at the moment. I see no reason why a TVS or a Bajaj or a Ather, perhaps Ola also, might be able to ship out some of their productions to other countries. So that's my take on electric vehicle industry, and I'm open to questions. Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Pranav, for a very exhaustive and detailed presentation on the evolution of electric vehicles and the component industry in China and lessons for India. I think the electric vehicle technology is coming in a big way to India also. I have seen it in different parts of India, including small town, rural towns also. It will take time to pick up, but I think we can see the change already in cities like Pune. There are lots of, especially the people from the young generation are using a lot of electric cars, electric bikes also. I can see a lot of electric bikes, many of them made in India. So I think we are seeing a shift, and you are right, many traditional companies, including Japanese companies like Nissan and Toyota, are having a difficult time because to adapting to the new technologies, because the Chinese have totally run away with the EV technology. They are moving much faster than many others, but I'm sure the Tatas and the Mahindras are also coming up with their own vehicles. You can see Tata Curve Electric, Tata Punch Electric, all these cars are coming. Mahindras are also coming. We'll see a change. I think the next 10 years will be very crucial for India. So I invite questions. Now that we have finished with all the three presentations, I think if we can invite the presenters to be here, and we can open the floor for questions. We have around, say, 20 minutes. I was told by the organizers we have to finish by around 3:40. So we have around 20 minutes, and because we have not had questions to Mr. Pranav, we can start with Mr. Pranav, and then you can ask the other presenters. So we'll finish at 3:40. Is that okay? Okay. The floor is yours to the audience. And please introduce yourself when you ask the questions. Yeah. I think, yeah, you can. Even otherwise, it's okay. You can hear you.
inviting them, we stopped that investment in the last 3 years. Now we are also re-looking at that situation again. So what has been your experience so far? Like how much damage we have done to our industry by not inviting those investments and instead of importing them in so much bulk that our trade deficit has gone more than 100 billion per year. What is your opinion?
So trade deficit is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll start with that. Do you know how much trade deficit China has with Taiwan? Any guesses? Over 150 billion in a year. This- Taiwan and China. So Taiwan is a dominant partner. Why? Because they have access to better technology, which China has not been able to replicate, or at least they are building it, but still not there. And this has happened everywhere else in the world. Like, for example, China has trade deficit with Japan also, because Japan has better advanced machineries, better access to fine chemicals, which go into many production facilities which China hosts. So I would say that trade deficit is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on that, what are you importing? So if an Indian factory is importing machineries, what's wrong in that? I'll use that machinery to do value addition in my country and create jobs here, which is the need of the hour. Nothing wrong in that. If I'm importing screw and nuts and bolts, which my local factory also has the capacity, but somewhere because of some deep discounts which Chinese companies are making, if it is hurting my domestic industry, then I got to be cautious about it. And I think government of India has been pretty cautious about it. I think for almost 20 sectors, they have introduced quality control orders to curb these kind of. So we got to look at this very, very minutely. Machinery, no issues. If you will stop Chinese import, people will have to get it from Germany, from Italy, from Japan, which are more expensive. This will hurt the unit economics of the project, which we are trying to do in India. And especially when the cost of capital is so high in India, we should not be doing it. So I am okay with trade deficit, as long as it is for the right reason.
The mic. Yeah. Okay, Dr. Jamin. Yeah. Okay, you want to, yeah, I will.
Hello. Huh. So my question was, when a customer shifts from the petrol and diesel vehicle to electric or battery vehicle, so they need, today is a world of fashion, right? So they need good models and good looking aesthetic sense. So this also matters while purchasing a vehicle. Today it is not the time where people want only the electric vehicle or battery. They also need a good look of that, because the family will be going there. Because I think the models are very less, and the colors are very available are very less, and there are not any guarantee of any charging stations are there, or some how much time they will require to charge the cars. Can they charge the car at home? Because many rickshaw wale sare gas khatam ho gaya, charging station nahi hai. So these problems are there in India. So how do you think you will overcome it, even if you have production with China or any country? The main thing is the infrastructure is not there. We have Samruddhi Marg, but there are no charging stations. So people like petrol, diesel. Are gaadi band to nahi padegi. That is no. This is okay, but wherever we, yeah, yes. Therefore, we are in politics, no. So we are going to push that thing, but what I'm talking about, the models and colors which are available. That was my question. No. When we shift, yes. Okay.
with TVS iQ, right? Bigger seat, a lot of family audience in India wanted that scooter. Likewise for car also, if you look at Tata started with very base models. Same goes for Mahindra as well, but now you have Punch, Curve. So the newer models and features are coming into the market. Currently, car market in India is very small. Till date, we have sold 1.95 lakh cars in India.
So recently, I went to Nagpur. I saw that e-vehicles, even in Ahmednagar, everywhere. So they're making too much noises. I mean, that vehicle is not so cozy. And when you sit in an e-vehicle, I mean, only I can sit. I cannot take my family with me. So they're like sit in the vehicle which is petrol diesel. So that is because that is up to about 1.75 lakhs to 2 lakhs. And the petrol diesel rickshaw, auto rickshaw is of 3 lakhs. So फर्क पड़ता है. Make it more cost effective. It is not cost effective.
Cost effective बनेगा. Reason being कि अभी battery pack का cost ज़्यादा है India, right? The world over battery pack is becoming more affordable now because of Chinese competition. So this is the way like Chinese are trying to help us. They're fighting with each other. So the prices of the lithium-ion battery packs have gone down, and now Indian industry can take advantage of it. And we are also trying to develop our own indigenous cell manufacturing facilities here. So I feel that in due course, in next 1 or 2 years, already we have seen 50% reduction in the battery price. So now all that money that is saved on battery pack will be used for enhancing the cosmetic features of the car. Better infotainment systems, better cabin experience, all of that. Because it's a cost, you can only pay 15 lakh rupees, right? If 50 entire bills of material is going towards battery pack and electronics, then it gets very tough for me as an engineer to design something which you find aesthetic and appealing. But when the cost of the core components goes down, then I have a little bit of headroom to do it. And I think eventually that will happen. So maybe you should wait for 1 year and you will find a beautiful car to purchase.
And just one small thing, even if it's not about whether the Indian economy or the government can afford it. I mean, just put it into a number. In Europe, uh, today there are 750,000 charging stations compared to 10 million in China. It's not about the economy. You cannot say that the European economies are better off than India so that they can afford it. It's not about it. It's that entire ecosystem. How much cars, licenses you have, how many cars on the road you have, and I think that only adds up to that. Just to give you the number, 750,000 and 10 million.
Send us a picture also once you have it.
Yeah. Next, Dr. Jabin wanted to ask. I'll come to you after that. Yeah, please.
So one question to Dr. Nitya. I mean, towards the end, you ended by saying that China had these challenges of balancing security, innovation, and international collaboration. So, I mean, taking a theme from the previous session of geopolitical competition, exactly how is China's, uh, you know, uh, product development in the geospatial space or, innovations being affected by the current US-China trade war? You said that they have their own systems, they're setting up their own satellite monitoring stations, satellites, etc. But at some point, innovation is also affected by trade sanctions. So I just wanted to get a sense of some details about this particular. The other question actually, so Divay, the question of narratives. So I noted your points about how policy is not everything, and that if you don't have the product market fit, then no amount of narrative will work. But I mean, I think Aravind is also right. You are also right. Uh, so the thing is that while we can make everything that we want here in India, the narrative in China will not allow Indian products to be sold in China. So narrative matters because there is a narrative that drives Chinese innovation, Chinese desire to differentiate themselves, set their own standards. So I don't think you can completely dismiss the narrative element. And if you, as you say, that the government has imposed restrictions on Chinese products or Chinese imports, then that will affect your unit price. And then and if you can't import from the Chinese, then you will have to, your industry will be forced to take those changes. And that's exactly what the Chinese have done for nearly 20, 30 years, that they blocked Google, they blocked Facebook, which let the Chinese develop their own Baidu and Weixin or whatnot. So, and especially in a school of government studying political science, I think narratives becomes a very, very important part. But I mean, I agree that that narrative cannot dominate the conversation. So that, I think, is a problem that as political science people think that a narrative says, "Kaam ho jayegi." It doesn't. So and I agree with you, by the way, on the fact that the trade deficit is not everything. But I think the problem is not so much trade deficit, but the indirect barriers, that non-tariff barriers that the Chinese put on our products. So that, I think, is the problem. I mean, the Chinese were blocking our pharmaceutical products for the longest time. But once they wanted their public health cost systems to go down, that's when they started importing Indian products, because they found Indian pharmaceuticals cheapest. So, but do you foresee a situation like that ever emerging in the EV sector? Is there, I mean, my sense is that it won't, because it's just too tech heavy, tech dependent. Thank you.
Indian government said, okay, so you pay 60% and get it here, which doesn't make sense because Indian customers are not willing to pay that much for Tesla. Tesla is anyways not a premium car. I mean, it's a good functional car, I would say. Likes of Ambani and Adani will not use Tesla for their commute, right? So, I think why the reason, I think in your earlier question you asked that why auto sector grew, because auto sector is behind the walls of custom duty in India. And to some extent, I would say the Indian auto industry has not innovated enough. We still import a lot of components from China and Japan and elsewhere. So somewhere we need to look at that, how we can come up the curve, try to develop these conventional products in-house, get some technology transfer if we don't have the capability of doing the R&D. And that should be perfectly okay. Every country in the world has done this. We should shamelessly copy also, if that is okay, and improvise on it. So, I mean, 2 to 4 kind of narrative is not bad. If you can't do 0 to 1, 2 to 4 is okay.
Yeah. Dr. And then also wants to answer.
Yeah, I'll answer your question. So ideally, in this case, it is not catering for the external market. The market in terms of geospatial is not about exporting. Whereas in Indian case, it happens, a lot of companies in Indian context works for foreign companies on the geospatial front. That is a certain part of services. But the kind of apps they have built by utilizing their navigation unit and by having more and more accurate maps on the ground, having their own geodetic system, is something which created that opportunity within the country. So in Indian case, for say, let's say majority of the project come from Government of India in geospatial field, right? So whereas on the other side, these opportunities are created by providing services to the people. So you are creating more and more services, more and more apps, more and more facilities. That has triggered that business. And of course, we are not using any of the apps or any of the, navigation units provided by them. Though our phones do carry certain, let's say in these days, if you buy a smartphone, you will get more than one navigation unit. It's not GPS, it is GLONASS from Russia, Galileo from European Space Agency, and then IRNAS chips are not coming up. The Indian regional navigation chips are not yet operational. Whereas our phones do carry Baidu, receivers when it is a Chinese phone. Whereas if you contrastingly look at even if IRNSS comes out, I doubt whether this will go in Chinese market. Whereas those are the people who comes first and adapted IRNSS chip. So when India, ISRO wants to roll out, I believe they are the first one who came out and said, we will induct your chip, right? So that's a kind of willingness to utilize it. And the industry is different. It is about creating market within the country rather than looking outside the country, where they have huge opportunity. If every of your problem is getting solved when it has a spatial component in it, there the business lies for geospatial guy.
सर सर मैं हिंदी में बोल सकता हूँ क्या? सर मैं द हिंदू न्यूज़ को फॉलो करता हूँ और उसमें एडिटोरियल था कि हमारे जो स्टार्टअप है वो फंडिंग का इशू फेस करते हैं और मतलब उन्हें कोई बैंक्स होती है वो भी लोन नहीं देती है और लोन जब देती है तो उन्हें कुछ उनकी प्रॉपर्टी गिरवी रखनी पड़ती है। तो आप मैनेजमेंट है तो आप मैनेजमेंट अथॉरिटी में भी काम करते तो इसको कैसे सॉल्ट आउट किया जाए जिससे हमारे जो न्यू स्टार्टअप है वो बूस्ट अप करे और हमारी इकोनॉमी फॉरवर्ड करे।
पिछले कुछ समय से स्टार्टअप्स को दिक्कत हो रही है पैसा रेज करने में, उसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है। स्टार्टअप जो होता है वो जनरली बैंक के पास नहीं जाता है लोन लेने के लिए, क्योंकि स्टार्टअप बहुत इनिशियल स्टेज में होता है, तो बैंक वाले को इतना कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं होता है स्टार्टअप के ऊपर कि उसको फंड दे सके। वो जनरली एक टर्म होती है वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट या एंजल इन्वेस्टर्स, उनके पास जाते हैं। हाल फिलहाल में एंजल इन्वेस्टर्स और वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट बहुत ज़्यादा फोकस्ड हो गए हैं। वो ऐसे बिजनेस मॉडल में पैसा नहीं डालना चाहते हैं जिसमें उनको कोई फ्यूचर नहीं लगता है कि ये बिजनेस आगे जाके बड़ा हो सकता है। तो इस समस्या को सॉल्व करने के लिए बहुत सारे क्या इंक्यूबेटर्स हैं। इंक्यूबेटर मतलब यूनिवर्सिटीज़ के अंदर इंक्यूबेटर्स बने हैं जहाँ पर जो अपकमिंग स्टार्टअप है वो अपने आप को एनरोल करा सकता है। इंक्यूबेटर वाले लोग उनको सही इन्वेस्टर से मिलने में मदद करते हैं। लेकिन सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट चीज़ है कि हमेशा ऐसा स्टार्टअप आप बनाएं जो जिसका प्रॉफिटेबल होने का फ्यूचर हो। अगर आप बिजनेस में प्रॉफिट नहीं कमाएंगे, सिर्फ आप नैरेटिव में बिजी रहेंगे कि मैं तो ये नहीं करूँगा वो नहीं करूँगा, स्टार्टअप जब आता है, जब आपके बैंक में पैसा खत्म होने लग जाता है, फिर आप इंडिया और चाइना नहीं देखते हैं फिर आप देखते हैं कि भाई पैसा कैसे बने, कस्टमर को सेल्स कैसे बढ़े, इस तरह का प्रेशर होता है माइंड पे आपके। तो हमेशा कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि प्रॉफिटेबल बिजनेस बनाए, और अगर आपको कोई मदद चाहिए उसके लिए अपना स्टार्टअप बनाने के लिए, तो या तो MIT यूनिवर्सिटी में, मुझे पता नहीं है कि यहाँ पे कोई इंक्यूबेटर है या नहीं, अदरवाइज और भी बहुत सारी यूनिवर्सिटीज़, IIT बॉम्बे, IIT मद्रास, मैं खुद IIM बेंगलोर के साथ काम करता हूँ, उनका भी एक एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप सेल है, मैं उसके अंदर काफ़ी स्टार्टअप के साथ मिलकर काम करता हूँ। तो आप ज़रूर बताइएगा कि अगर आप आगे कुछ करना चाहते हैं।
जस्ट टू दो या तीन चीज़ें ऐड करनी है। जब आप कोई स्टार्टअप करते हैं तो पहला आपका द फर्स्ट राउंड इज़ FNF फंड होता है, फ्रेंड्स एंड फैमिली राउंड होता है। जो भी आपके पास जो एक्यूमुलेटेड कैपिटल जिसको कहते हैं, उसके बेसिस पे आप स्टार्ट करते हैं, FNF राउंड होता है। आप राउंड A, B, C में बहुत बाद में चले जाते हैं। FNF के बाद दूसरा जो राउंड आता है, वेंचर कैपिटल एंजल इन्वेस्टर पास जाते हैं। तब आपने प्रूव करना होता है कि आपका जो इंक्यूबेशन पीरियड में आपने जो काम किया है, बिकॉज बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ अ स्टार्टअप, बीइंग अ पार्ट ऑफ स्टार्टअप, वी हैव बीन गिविंग सर्विसेज टू मेरिक्स आल्सो, Nomura Foundation and Indo-Pacific Outfit also. I'm part of that, one of the startups. So आपको वो FNF में survive करना पड़ता है पहले, और वो 2 महीने से लेके 6-7 महीना हो सकता है। उसके बाद आपको VCs के पास जाना पड़ता है। VCs के पास जाएंगे तो they'll ask for you some share. ठीक है, ये शार्क इंडिया नहीं, I want to talk like a shark India here. But I'm saying is that period of you, एक period होता है, उसमें आपको कैपिटलाइज करना पड़ता है। इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर, लॉट ऑफ द इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया भी अभी स्टार्टअप्स के लिए दे हैव ऑलरेडी स्टार्टेड गिविंग फंड्स। सो मुझे लगता है कि वो एक पीरियड है, वो पीरियड बहुत नाजुक पीरियड होता है जिसमें आपको सर्वाइव करना पड़ता है 3 या 4 महीने में, जब आपको स्टैब्लिश कर सकते हैं, देन यू कैन सेल आउट एनीथिंग। एज आई हर्ड समबडी वाज टेलिंग मी, यू कैन सेल इवन द मिट्टी आल्सो if you show the confidence into that.
Next question, Professor Alkaj. No, I think we can have it. Yeah, sure.
In fact, my question actually resonates with what the last questioner, the young boy, asked. It's about really, you see, we're talking here at 2 different levels. One is about new technologies, new developments, new directions, a general enhancement in the overall capabilities of a country or a state. Okay, but the other side of the coin is the diffusion of that technology at the level of the people, which raises, as it see, unless you have raised the levels at the bottom, the tide doesn't rise. I mean, go back to how the auto revolution came about first. In comes Sanjay Gandhi and says Maruti car everybody can afford, and so he sort of made that. Tata comes in, Nano, 1 lakh. So the point is this accessibility, which is affordable, which raises the levels of technology usage and capabilities at lower levels. So the ecosystem which can, and so Arvind's point brings it out, that we don't have that ecosystem in which actually we have a matching kind of a dynamism coming from below, which will raise the level of the country as a whole. At the moment, we are talking of niche areas which are targeted at elite kind of sectors, which are targeted at very specific kind of. So if we do not think in terms of diffusing technology and technological capability at lower levels, at level of people, I don't think we are thinking as a nation. So it's just a comment, maybe.
Hello. Yeah, my question is to Mr. Divya Pranav, I'm sorry. First of all, congratulations, very nice informative session. As Professor Yelery brilliantly explained, true to his reputation, the linkages between science, technology, narrative and the opportunity. So this question is regarding the Chinese EV industry. Democratic Republic of Congo is the highest producer of cobalt, which is very essential in the Li-ion batteries. And it produces 55% of the world's cobalt. And 90% of it is exported to China. So what if anything goes wrong? How is Indian EV industry gearing up for the supply chain shock? Okay, exactly. That's what the question was.
Solid state batteries, sodium ion batteries, like reducing dependence on the rare earth metal, because the rare earth is completely under the control of China. So you got to innovate in your lab to identify new ways of storing energy, and that is already happening. Some people are doing it in India. Perhaps some of this might happen in Europe or overseas. Large Indian corporate houses might do some M&A acquisition, like M&A activities, acquire those technologies, bring them to India. Reliance has done that already. So yeah, so some startups might do innovative stuff here. So a lot is happening in that area.
Just time for one last question. We'll take.
My question is to Nithiyanandam, sir. Sir, earlier my fellow mate asked about the surveillance question. So, what does geospatial technology and industry has a role? Actually, geospatial data encompasses a very wide spectrum of data, and computer scientists may know it as complex data structures that we store. So, how can the industry prevent the sensitive data to get exposed?
If you look at the applications in your phone, right? I'm just putting out at a larger kind of applications. If you try to say no to the location information, as I said in the beginning of my talk, your app will not function. As a user, first of all, we also need to take care whether the location information is necessary for that app or not. For say, Zomato requires a location information. Tinder requires a location information. Instagram, do you need location information? But we give, right? So this is the first step at our end. And how many of you turned off Google location history in your Google account? There's something called location history, which take care of every alternate second, every, it has a timestamp of how much time you are sitting in this place. It is not required. You can turn it off, right? Unless you want to share it with your girlfriend or your family members, like you can do that. But it is not necessary to turn it on every time, right? So that's the first step we need to take care. Second, industry try to make money over it. The reason for that is, like I told, the companies in India also trying to establish, location-based services, right? How they got the data? They have not collected it overnight. They have collected it through other means. Let's say Map My India, a good company headed by a friend of mine. But the problem is they collected it for different purpose, right? Providing services on the vehicle. As he said, the embedding thing, just in between. The embedding is not just a new thing. Our Zomato and Swiggy guys are embedded their phone there, right? So they did much before. But they collected it for something else, right? Map My India collected it for navigation. And thereafter, they captured the data, providing service to the other guy. Similarly, Ola and Uber collected the data for their services. Now they are making the routing and other services outside it. So they make money out of it because this data is crucial for insurance guy. This data is crucial for many other applications. So this is ideally taken. So we also need to prevent that to some extent. And there is no regulation because it's all clearly written. You have given consent by yourself. They're not, taking the data because these things are strict.
So I'll just. So I'm sure, this mic now. So I'm sure all of us will agree that it has been a very fascinating session, afternoon session. Generally, afternoon sessions are very lousy ones, and many of them doze off to sleep after a good lunch. But this was not one of those. We had no time to sleep. We had no time to laze, because there is such an exciting discussion going on, and I'm sure all of us have learned many things from this. I would have to check where is my Google location history and turn it off now. I would be very careful, especially because I work a lot on India and Japan. That is, the geopolitical angle is also there. But anyway, so there are lots of takeaways from this session. I'm sure our students, the academics and others will have a lot to ponder over over the issues raised in this. But I'm sure India is going in the right way. EV technology is coming. Many of some of the people who ask questions have mentioned about, are we behind China? Of course, at this moment in EV technology. But the time will come, I think, when we'll be almost in the same league. Battery prices are coming down. And it's good to know what kind of technologies are coming to India. I think the COVID pandemic has been, I think in many ways, has helped us to improve on our own industry at that time, I think even these PPE kits were not being manufactured in India. Now those days are gone. There are so many things we are manufacturing in India. And India is a big market, so I think Indian companies are adapting very quickly. Tatas, Mahindras, as we have discussed, are coming up to it. And the day is not far when I think we'll be exporting our EVs to different parts of the world. I have myself seen Bajaj in India. I've been to Indonesia, so Bajaj, TVS are big names in Southeast Asian countries and also in Africa. So these are the markets we should try to, we have to try to capture. Capture is not a good word. We should try to focus would be the most better alternative. So with this, I think I would like to bring this fascinating session to an end. Thank you to all of you and for being here and for such a patient listening. And thank you to all the presenters. We had very great presentations by all three of us. So a big round of thanks to all of them. And also to the organizers. And now I leave the floor over. I give back the session to the organizers. Thank you so much and have a nice evening.
Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to welcoming you tomorrow again. And one last thing before we leave, I would request the chair to please felicitate the speakers for today. May I please request Professor Alka Acharya to felicitate the chair?